but I got a Jaguar. I bought a Jaguar. So.
You got a G1. I can totally see Marky Silver.
Oh, and the thing was, I wanted, it was the Jaguar that it was the kind of car that the Equalizer drove, so that's why I bought that. Yeah. It's, that was one of my favorites back in the younger person and all that. All right. We're talking a little bit about cars here with Josh Brown of Knockahoma Nation before we talk baseball. And where to begin? The Atlanta Braves fall last night to the Cincinnati Reds 4-2. This is a series. I've talked to you about this, that in the Tri-Cities, and I know, Josh, that you're hailing from Georgia. You know, you covered the Rome Braves minor league team for quite some time. And now podcasting at KnockahomaNation.com. Very enjoyable listen. Again, I always say, well, you're cooking. That's what I like to do, to listen to podcasts and such. But here we go. I wanted to ask, I know that it's a bigger rivalry in the Tri-Cities than it would certainly be in Atlanta and possibly Cincinnati, Braves and Reds. But it still has to be, just for the fact that the Reds are only 10-14, and if the Braves had won any one of the two games they lost in Cincinnati, they'd be in first place right now. Disappointing to lose 2 of 3 in Cincinnati to the last place Reds. What say you about the way the series went down?
It's April 26th.
Yeah.
So it's not the end of the world, but it's, I, as a baseball fan, I mean, obviously, you know, the Atlanta Braves are my home team, Marky, but as a baseball fan, I've got a soft spot for the Reds just because of the history and the Reds team and all that. And so, actually, this offseason, on a baseball fan level, I was actually, you know, kind of excited for the Reds. You know, get Sonny Gray, going after Yasiel Puig, you know, being kind of relevant again. And so, you know, Braves fandom aside, it's nice to see them do well. I think Derek Dietrich is a good pickup. I know he's a utility guy.
But at 10-14, I got to point that out. I mean, so yes, they did win last night, but how well they're doing is still debatable. But yeah, you know. But no, go ahead. Yes, the pickups they made.
Yeah, I'm just throwing the Reds fans a bone, okay? So you know, hey, when the Braves loaded the bases last night and didn't do anything, and the Reds just struck out the side, you got to just pitch your down. You know, this is one of the things where they're not playing great ball in the big scheme of things, but they've had some good moments the last 2 nights. I don't think the Braves fans, even though they're probably freaking out on the Twitters, I don't think they've got legit reason to be too concerned yet. I think they'll be just fine.
Well, the one thing you could maybe argue is that Raziel Iglesias, I mean, that's the closer of the series. So you mentioned the bullpen coming through for the Reds in crunch time and such. By the way, I know that you've been historically something of a critic of Julio Teheran. His ERA now is over 5 after yesterday's loss. I don't know, what are your thoughts right now on Teheran?
He's weird, and baseball is weird. Julio Teheran innings 1 through 4 is fantastic. He's got like a 2.21 ERA, and inning 6 around the same. But inning 5, for whatever weird reason, unbeknownst to us, Marky, he forgets how to pitch. It seems. So, Julio's weird because he's that guy that he's going to give up a home run. Maybe 2 dingers, right? But then, aside from that, in general, he's good. You know what I mean? He's better than a lot of times his numbers seem to be. And I know I've said this before, and I know batting average isn't everything. It's not very in vogue, but he was tied with Jacob DeGrom last year with a opponent batting average. Obviously, he gave up more dingers. Obviously, giving up a dinger is worse than giving up a single. But other than leaving the ball up here and there, he's pretty good. And if Julio Teheran is like your 3rd or 4th guy, you got a good rotation, I think.
Look, I'll be with you on pitchers' batting average. I mean, opponents' batting average against them. I mean, when you see a guy and he's like, batters are hitting 203 against him. I mean, sort of like, you know what? The guy has got to be doing something right. I mean, that seems like a pretty decent breaking ball or something that the guy is throwing. I mean, I've always been impressed with that as well. And so, you know, in fact, that was the one stat I remember that if you could get your hands on it, I always kind of liked reading it, you know, and all this opponent's batting average against a pitcher. I thought that was just sort of a sneaky good stat that if you had a guy with who was doing, hey, batter's hitting 195 against him, you know, that was a good argument that you could make in who's the best and all that. So, looking at that, we're talking to Josh Brown. Yes?
I think part of Julio's thing, too, amongst Braves fans is, like, fatigue. You know what I mean? It feels like, if you're a Braves fan, it feels like Julio Ronald's been in the Braves forever. You know what I mean? And
wasn't he the fifth starter with Smoltz, Glavine, and Maddox back in the day? Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of other fan bases would love Julio Ronaldo. I think fans get tired of the same guy sometimes. You know, I've been hard on Julio Ronaldo, especially last year, but I think he's better than fans might think he is. I do.
Well, he's had all those opening day starts. So, I mean, you look at that. Yeah. And right now, the ERA of 5 or so, you mentioned the fifth inning, he gave up 2 runs in that frame. One thing I wanted to ask, though, about was in the third inning, Acuna, I mean, throwing out the runner at second off a ball he hits off the wall and all this, I found that to be impressive. What do you think of Acuna's arm?
So, your boy watched Acuna in 2016 in Toronto and saw it, like, in person. And I've always thought this, and I still think this, and it's kind of contentious on Twitter.com, but I think that Ronald Acuna, not just because of his arm, but also because of some other things, I think he is the future center fielder for the Braves. I know that's weird because I like Ender. I think Ender's fantastic. So, the worst case scenario, he's not, and he's a fantastic defender in left field, you know, or right field. So you got like 2 center fielders in your outfield, essentially, right? If you did keep Ender and TRJ. But, yeah, it's impressive. I think that a lot of us saw it in the minors, and lived in Rome, and watched him there, and some other places. But it's going to be really fun, I think, to see national Braves fans get a taste of Ronald Acuna. Because we've seen it, and I think it's going to be exciting when other fans get to see it on a bigger stage. He's so good. Yeah, he really is.
I was thinking, boy, that seems like too good of an arm to put in left field, you know, almost, you know, right. And such. Hey, Chris Welch and his statement on Ozzie Albies. I mean, I know that, yeah, $35 million. Maybe you can't tell the difference between $35 million and $85 million. I kind of think that Ozzie Albies probably can count past $35 million. He probably could figure out that 85 apples on a table are more than 35 apples on a table or so. What did you take from all that? It was something of a bizarre comment by the Reds broadcaster, Chris Welch.
Here's my hot take. I listened to the whole thing, and in context, if you listen to what he was saying in those 2 to 3 minutes, I think Chris Welch was saying good things, and it was coming from a good place, and I think he was good intention, okay? And then he said something dumb in the middle of that, which was, you know, not knowing the difference between 85 and 35. I think he was being a little hyperbolic, and I think that because of 2019, he's going to get, or has gotten, and probably will continue to get, probably way more backlash than the crime deserves. I do. I think he said some kind of dumb, and I think that I've probably said much worse. Obviously, not on that big of a stage, granted, but I don't think it's. You know how it is. You know how the mob is, and how Twitter is. You know, he made a mistake, and I think he's probably a good guy. And I think he was trying to say something good, and it just came out wrong.
Yeah, Welsh, I think, has something of it. You want your color commentator to be outspoken. I get that. And, yeah, that's a prerequisite. You were saying it just didn't come out right or so. He has apologized for the comment, But I think it goes hand in hand with this, Acuna, Albies, these contracts the Braves are signing their stars to long term. And it's almost like, there's this feeling that we need to be critical of these contracts or something because they're tying them up for a lot of money long term. And there's something to be said for that. And I've said to you, I think it's a good thing for baseball, but you're just now trying to criticize, and people don't know why they're trying to criticize this. And by the way, what is it that says, that he's going to make $85 million in the future? That's going to be on the table in a few years anyway. I mean, where is that written? So, I don't know. We asked this before, but it bears a question worth repeating. The criticism of the Braves for signing their stars to these contracts that lock them up through their 20s and so. I think they're brilliant. I think they'll work well for the player because I think from a marketing standpoint, identifying them with a team that is going to probably be on their way up is going to be helpful, and it's going to be something that, let's say, a Manny Machado does not have. And I just, what are your thoughts on this criticism that the Braves or, players are receiving for signing these long-term contracts?
I think for the last 20 years, stupid money has been given to these players. Guaranteed money, mind you, okay? Guaranteed money has been given to players who almost never meet those expectations. We're talking about guaranteed money. We're talking about ridiculous contracts over the last 20 years. And I think now, we're seeing a GM in the Atlanta Braves in Alex Anthopoulos who is very intelligent and reasonable and sensible. And I think we're watching a guy operate the correct way in the confines of this industry. I really think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the
We're losing Josh Brown.
Whoa!
Yeah, no, we're here.
Okay, sorry. I think the argument that the Braves are being disrespectful, I think it's lazy and ignorant. I really do. I think that getting paid $35 million to play baseball during the summer months is a good thing. It's a fantastic thing. In fact, look at Ozzy Albies last year. And I love Ozzy Albies. I think he's fantastic. But he had a bad half last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's a little injury prone, right? And so he's been given guaranteed millions of dollars to play baseball. And I think when you come at that at the angle the national media has, it is ridiculous. It's silly, and I think the argument that these owners make billions while the players make millions is lazy and ignorant and disingenuous. If you want to make billions, then stop playing baseball again.
I would just point this out that, they're probably, if you want to talk about it, on the production that Acuna and Albies have made so far, actually overpaid initially and such. So, you look at that. I just think that baseball, I saw a stat that right now 12 teams are averaging less than 20,000 fans a game. And since 2000, there has not been a season in which more than 4 teams have averaged less than 20,000 a game. And when I mention that to you here, Josh Brown of Knockahoma Nation, to me, so much of this is that we've reduced the player to a number and he no longer has identity. I think that, yes, if we can brand Acuna and Albies as Braves or stars with any team, if it is Machado with the Padres or if it would have been with the Orioles or even the Dodgers or whatever, if we can brand that, which you can't do when you're being traded around like a lottery ticket in a poker game, that this is going to be helpful for baseball to go forward. And we're not looking at things like this. And like I said, right now, this is a top-heavy contract. Initially, this is short-term. This is good for Acuna and Albies. And so I think that we got to look at that as well. Now, question I want to ask you, you're a Taylor Swift fan, right?
Where'd you hear that?
Didn't you tell me that before?
Taylor Swift?
Okay, so I'm confusing you with somebody else.
I mean, I like her. I think she's cool.
I'm confusing you with Caleb Calhoun. Don't worry, I did it with Alex Doherty yesterday when he had this tweet out talking about Taylor Swift, and so I then led the interview with Taylor Swift. He says, you didn't get it. I was being sarcastic. Oh, wow. I'll have to wait. This Tuesday, we'll be talking Taylor Swift with Caleb Calhoun of Alford, Tennessee. I wanted to see what you thought of me, that sort of thing. I wanted to see what you thought of evidently there was a Dixie Chicks reference in it and all this, but yeah, I do say, yeah. Well, there's some, yes, anyway,
I get very passionate about new Dixie Chicks.
You get very passionate about new Dixie Chicks? I'd like to get passionate about all Dixie. I just wish that I could one time be passionate with Natalie Maines. That's all I have to say. I'm Marky Wilson, and if you send the word out to Nashville, see what comes back. You've been listening to Josh Brown. Listen to him on KnockahomaNation.com, and we'll be talking more baseball, of course, next week about this. I do want to talk a little bit about ETSU and their basketball transfers, yes, again, to close out the show, and that's what we'll be doing on Tri-City Sports Now after I take you through, this is the song that came out at midnight from Taylor Swift, Tri-City Sports Now.